this Saturday evening. Welcome to the fourth and penultimate session on forensic accounting. And we have none other than CN Nachiket Pendharkar. He was one of my tutors when I was doing forensic accounting standards class 2 years back in the month of Feb of 2020. And I have learned a lot from Nachiket sir. Therefore, I always look forward to him because the concept of forensic merged with a certified Microsoft trainer, having the knowledge of a chartered accountant, it's a very deadly combination. And Nachiket sir has a hand-on experience of not only being the faculty for FAFD in ICAI, but a regular trainer for various corporates and how to use Excel in your day-to-day work. So, without further ado, I, Vivek Agarwal, President of ACI, welcome you all for this lovely session and a very interactive session. This next 3 hours will be a roller coaster ride because what Sir will be taking in next 3 hours is actually a session of one day. But again, as I said, we'll teach you fishing. You will know how to catch the fish, but we'll not catch the fish for you. So you will have the concept, you will have the extra edge of knowing something and then going back home and using. In the workshop for Excel, you will always find a one-way deliberation happening. But with Nachiket ji, we'll be having a two-way deliberation. So preferably if you have a laptop and Office 2016 version, it will be very helpful for you. Or else you can just note down and the videos will be available to you. You can use it later as well. And if you are using a laptop, kindly download the 4 files I have shared in the WhatsApp group in the morning, whereby Nachiket sir had given all the files on which he will be working so that it becomes relatively easier for you to understand. And if someone catches your hand and explains you something, it becomes easier for you to work with that. Thanks a lot, Nachiket sir, to accept the invitation at ECA within a week's time and taking this deliberation in between your very busy schedule and training and all. So I would request Chairman Vivek Nevatia ji to kindly formally introduce Nachiket sir to our audience.
Thank you, President. A very good evening. A very good evening to Mr. Nachiket Pendarkar and to the entire audience here. It has been a wonderful session on forensic accounting, a workshop on forensic accounting with the best of experts deliberating on this subject. Mr. Nachiket, we are very privileged to have Mr. Nachiket Pendarkar. He was my faculty also when I was doing my forensic accounting course, and I've also attended some of his training sessions on pivot table, advanced pivot table, on Power Pivot. He has been wonderful in his training sessions when it comes to Excel. Mr. Nachiket Pendarkar, by qualification, is a chartered accountant, a CFA, and a DISA qualified. Worked with global MNCs like Citibank, Deutsche Bank, and HSBC in the fund accounting domain. In 2012, he started off with his own venture with VIN Learning Center, a corporate training institute, and conducts corporate trainings on Microsoft Office applications, Power BI, and Caseware Idea, helping professionals in securing Microsoft and Apple certifications. Additionally, he is also involved with various corporates to automate their Excel-based work processes using VBA macros and developing financial models. He globally stood 27th and 2nd in India in the prestigious Model of Financial Modeling Championship in the 2019 editions. We are privileged to have you here, and the way he trains us, or even virtually, is through practical sessions and very, very interactive. That is his skill set, and I believe that he ensures every one of us is actually part of his learning, part of the session whenever he is deliberating on Excel. Thank you, sir, for being here. Over to you for the session, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, both the Vivek Jis. Okay, for giving me the invitation. It was indeed my pleasure and honor to speak on the platform of such a prestigious and esteemed institute. And thank you, the other Vivek Nevatia ji, for giving such a such a flowery introduction. I suppose at the end of this introduction, everybody's expectations have risen, and I hope in the next 3 hours or so, I shall be able to give justice to it to the best of my abilities. So I think let us get started. If everybody is ready, let's get started for discussion. Actually, this discussion is more of an activity. It's not just a verbal discussion. And a set of files have already been shared with you all. I suppose every participant has received it. Okay. Just in case you are still not in receipt for whatever reason, just in case it's missing, the email got missed or something, you can indicate so in the chat box, because ideally I would like all of you to practice it with me. I think Vivek Agarwal ji has very kindly also shared the Dropbox link over here over the chat. So just in case you have missed those files, you can download from that link. And as such, I would like everybody's engagement in this. As Nevatiaji mentioned, uh, this is going to be interactive. So I would like to hear from you time to time whether you are following things. If you have any questions, queries, you can raise those over the chat box. So make good use of the chat menu that is available, the chat facility. And I think let us get started, should we? So let me share my screen over here. Okay, I hope my screen is visible to everybody.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much. And I'll be just slightly increasing the size of the screen. But at any point, if you feel that you are not able to see properly, let me know. At any point, if you feel I am not properly audible, then also you can let me know, so that accordingly I'll try to see that if I can change certain things. Right? So here's a data set with us. We are going to today see how we can use Excel for forensic investigations. And while this is a very large subject potentially, we have narrowed down on a few topics, which, as Vivek Agarwal ji mentioned, that it is still a content of 1 day or so, and we have tried to compress it within 3 hours. So this is going to be a T20 session, right, where probably we'll have to go ahead briskly, and there will be some sixes and fours in every over. So just brace yourself for that, for a power packed activity in the next 3 hours. So we will get started with something known as Benford's law. What we'll do is, I was just thinking about how I can conduct this session, and then I thought, let's do it this way. We'll use one data set. Okay, so I have only shared one data set. Okay, ordinarily I share multiple data sets, but since we have limited time and more to achieve within that time, maximize. So we'll have one data set, and the same data set will attack from various angles. So there are three things on my agenda list, on my personal agenda list, and let's see how much we are able to cover that. One is Benford's law, so other one is RSF, and the third one is what I call as same test. Okay, so these three things we will see. Okay, if there are if there is anything that we discover from this. So let me begin with the Benford's law. Okay, what is Benford's law? This is a statistical law. Okay, now in school day statistics, we learned the laws of statistics, laws of probability rather, that how we can calculate probability. And then if I ask you to catch hold of any number, just think of a number and write down, or maybe just pick up a book, pick up a newspaper, pick up a magazine which may contain numbers, some financial daily or something, and just at random you try to catch a number, and the number could be anything. Now, what the question is, what is the probability that the first digit of that number is 1? So if I ask you this question, what is the probability that first digit of that number is 1? We may apply the probability principles that we might have learned during our college days, or at some professional courses. We might have learned the topic of probability. So one might think this way: we are looking at 1. Okay, 1 is one of the digits, one out of 9 possible digits, because you can have at the beginning 1, 2, 3, 4 till 9. You can't have 0 at the beginning, and as such you have only 10 digits, but 0 cannot be the first digit. Hence, there are 9 possibilities. Out of that, we are entertaining one possibility, that is 1. So 1 upon 9 happens to be the probability. This is what, as a lay person or as a matter of general understanding of the probability subject, we can derive this probability. And if I ask you, if I slightly change the question, what is the probability that the first digit is 2? Or what is the probability that the first digit is 3? Or for that matter, even 9? In any case, your answer will be the same. In any case, we are talking about one digit out of 9 possible digits at the beginning, at the start of a number. So it's 1 by 9, 1 by 9, 1 by 9 uniform. So if I make this as a table, let me just call it n, okay, n being the first digit, and then there is a probability of n. I may write the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you may just listen to this for now, and then we will start with the exercise a few minutes later. But let's just understand the concept. So if I just make a table like this, we have numbers running between 1 to 9, and the probabilities for each of them is 1 upon 9. Okay, this is what we may think as a lay person. If I add up this, I still get 1. So definitely I'm going to have a number between 1 to 9. So the sum total is 1, right? This is what we will do theoretically. But practically or empirically, when the statisticians studied this subject, studied this concept, they discovered something very interesting. Okay, while you are regarding every digit to be equivalent and equiprobable, it doesn't happen so in real life. For some reason, the digits follow a much different pattern. Okay, so if I want to calculate the probabilities, what is the probability that 1 is the first digit? It's not going to be 0.1111 something. It's not going to be the same probability for all of them. In fact, 1 is more probable than 2, 2 is more probable than 3, 3 is more probable than 4, and 9 is least probable. So this was their observation. This they observed out of empirical research, out of the actual past data research when they performed, they came to this realization. They discovered that actually the pattern is different. So how do we get this probability? Now, if you ask me the formula that they came up with based on empirical research was, logarithm of 1 plus 1 upon n. Okay, this may sound a little technical at the beginning, but this is the only technical point. Okay, later on we will not go much into this statistics. Okay, so this is the formula. Okay, for your ready reference, those who are interested, I can paste this in the chat window. Okay, I have pasted this in the chat window. You can pick up from there anytime. So this is the formula. If you are talking about n being your first digit, where n can run between 1 to 9, you just plug that in this formula, logarithms of 1 plus 1 by n, whatever is the value of n, to the base 10. Okay, I'm sure all of you have learned logarithms at some level in your academic journey, maybe at school level, maybe at +2 level, maybe at a higher level. I don't know. You might have learned that, but I'm sure that by now you might have quite forgotten about it, because honestly, since the advent of technology, since when I say technology means actually computers and similar other computing technologies, uh, the necessity to know logarithms and to apply logarithms in our calculations has faded away. So maybe in the past 20, 30 years, in case somebody is senior around here, at least for the past 20, 30 years, you haven't really used logarithms because computers are doing all the calculations for you. Okay, but let me give you a good news. You need not know anything about logarithms. Indeed, even if you don't know anything about logarithms, okay, still you can make the calculation because there is a function in Excel. If you have Excel with you, you can use log10 function. Okay, log10 will give you the base 10 logarithm. Yeah, I will not really go into what is logarithm, because that's not germane to our discussion. But I'll just apply the formula. Given that there is something called as logarithm, and given that I've got a log10 function in my Excel, can I just write down this expression 1 plus 1 by n? So over here, I'm going to make a table like this. This table is very easy to make. just enlist all the digits 1 to 9 and then build up this formula. And then I get these numbers. These numbers range from 0.30, 0.176, 0.124, and so on. I get all these digits, which I can just do one thing. I'll convert this into percentage for better readability. Okay. So I get these 9 digits, and for them there are the 9 probabilities which are given by logarithms, this formula. If I add up this, the sum total is 100%. Okay, if I take the total of these numbers, it is still 100%. It has to be 100% because total probability is always 1. But you can see the individual distribution is much different, and it's definitely falling from top to bottom. Okay, I might even draw a chart diagram, a chart of this. So I can just highlight these cells. Okay, the actual numbers, not 100%, but the actual individual numbers with the header I have highlighted. And then if I go to the insert tab in Excel, I have the insert tab and I can use this line diagram. And I can draw a line diagram which may look like this. I would like to conveniently place it somewhere. So this is how the curve looks like. Okay, if I draw a line diagram, my favorite is a line diagram. You can even draw a column diagram, but I somehow like a line diagram. This line slopes downwards from left to right, which indicates that the probability is falling. For 1, it is higher. For 2, it is lower than that. For 3, it is even lower than that. And if you go on connecting these points like this, then you get a downward sloping curve, which is convex to the origin, which means this is not a straight line. Okay, this is not a straight line, or its shape is not like this. Its shape is like this, which indicates that initially it falls rapidly and then it falls gently. Okay, this is in a nutshell what Benford's law is. Okay, those who have more interest can Google about it or can consult a book, and you can gain more knowledge about what is Benford's law. But let us come back to forensics. See, we are not students of statistics, or definitely not students of pure statistics. So while this may sound like an interesting idea, one question will definitely come in your mind sooner or later, that how this discussion is relevant for forensic investigations, right? We are not here to talk about probability in its absolute sense. So how this is going to help me? So I'll tell you one thing. If you have any kind of data set, many of you might be auditors. So I mean, as chartered accountants or as CMA qualified, or for any other reason, you might be anyways routinely practicing audit. If you are an auditor, okay, you are required to examine data. So maybe a data like this you might examine, and as you examine the data, what you can do is you might have an amount column, and using that amount column, we can see what kind of pattern we get. So Benford's law suggests this pattern. What Benford's law says is that for any data, so long as the numbers are allowed to flow freely, if numbers are allowed to flow freely and you let nature takes its course, in that case, you will invariably end up having this pattern. So while this may sound fantastic, but this has been empirically proven that it indeed follows this pattern for any kind of data. So long as the numbers are free flowing, numbers can be anything, and there you should have a sample of minimum 1,000 numbers. Okay, 1,000 is considered as a the thumb rule. Okay, so you should have minimum 1,000 numbers. Do you have a sample of at least 1,000 numbers? If yes, then you can apply Benford's law and see whether it satisfies. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one simple calculation here. And now I want everybody's participation. Okay, this was just a preliminary discussion on Benford's law. Now let us see, we have a data set. Let's assume you are an auditor. Let's say you are a frauditor. That is, you are a forensic auditor here and trying to investigate whether there is a fraud. If yes, who is the perpetrator and what's the quantum. Okay, while other eminent faculties have come and they have spoken about the other subjects. Now, let's say you have come to the stage where now you have got the data. You are supposed to study the data. Okay, maybe basis on the findings of the data, you will hold an interview and other things, whatever you learned in your other sessions that you will apply. For now, this data looks at you and we want to apply Benford's laws to this and let us see if we get something out of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to derive the first digit here. Okay. So what can I do? I can make one column here called first digit. Okay. I'll make one column called first digit and I'll use a function called left. Okay. In Excel, we have a function called left, which lets us derive the first digit. So this is my number. Okay. And I want to extract the first digit out of it. When I close the bracket and hit enter, I get 1. I can drag and copy paste this till below. So I'll get more digits, all of them in fact. And now I'm supposed to summarize this. Okay, I've got the first digit for each of these numbers using the left function. Okay, I'll just paste this in chat in case somebody wants to check it anytime. Okay, the formula is here. And now let us summarize this. That means what? Let us just understand how many times 1 has come, how many times 2 has come. We have the different digits here. Okay, so what I might do is I'll go to the insert tab of Excel and I'll insert something known as a pivot table. Probably many of you may be familiar with pivot tables already. It is one of the most popular features of Excel and there is a lot to learn on pivot tables. Okay, some other day we will talk more about pivot tables and exclusively pivot tables. But for now, we will look at something very basic. Maybe many of you are already aware of it. We'll look at an application. So I'll come to insert, I'll come to pivot table and I'll tell Excel that this is my data, including the first digit. Okay, make sure that you have your first digit in F column itself. If you extract the first digit somewhere in G, H, I column, then you won't be able to properly build your pivot table. Make sure it is a continuous set of columns. And then this is my data and press OK. Now, when you press OK, it opens up a new worksheet. And in that new worksheet, we have a blank slate here. Okay. And what it says is to build a report, choose fields from the pivot table field list. Okay. From the pivot table field list, we will choose. Okay. For now, I'll just switch off my video because I think somewhere this floating window is causing a little bit of interruption in our discussion. So I'll just switch off my video for now. Then later on, I will again turn it on. Okay. Yeah. So now if you see, we have this pivot table. What you can do with your mouse is just click, drag and drop this first digit here in rows. Now, as you drop the first digit in rows, you will get a list of all these values 1 to 9. Similarly, the first digit you can drag and drop it in values also. Okay, so you get first digit here and then you get a count of first digit. Okay, I repeat, this first digit with the help of mouse, you have to drag. Suppose you have a blank slate like this. With the help of mouse, drop this first digit in rows and first digit in values. Now, as you do so, you will see that you have got a table automatically. You have numbers between 1 to 9 in rows and you have the count in B column. And this count can be converted into a percentage. Okay, this count you can convert into a percentage. You can click on this count of first digit value field settings. Okay, I repeat, you click on this count of first digit value field settings, the last option here. And here we have an option called show values as. Okay, we have show values as. From the drop down, we can select percent of grand total. Okay, select percent of grand total. The second option. By default, it is no calculation. You change that to percent of grand total. Press OK. And this gets transformed into percentages. So this is very convenient to have. Okay. You click here, then click on value field settings, go to show values as. From the drop down, choose percent of grand total and press OK. Now this will convert everything into percentage, and we can already see it looks like there is a different pattern. But I don't remember what's the Benford's pattern. So let me write it here. Benford's law percentages. What are the Benford's law percentages? So you know the formula, right? You can use log10 function. Okay, a formula I have pasted in the chat box also. Use the log10 function and just write 1 plus 1 upon, and then you will give reference of this A4 cell. 1 plus 1 upon A4. I close the bracket, press enter, I get 0.3010. And then I can just copy it till here. And as earlier, I'll go to the home tab and convert this into a percentage with 2 decimals. Okay. Now you compare the values. So here you have got 32%, here you have got 30%, here you have got 16, 17, 10, 12, 8 and 9, 9 and 7. So we get a different pattern. Or is it different or is it same? I'm a bit confused on this. Okay, looking at the numbers, see, because this is a statistical law. Okay, what I'm trying to say is this is a law of statistics. So statistical laws are inexact, they aren't exact. So while Benford's law suggests to you it should be 30.10%, will it be 100? Will it be always in any data set 30.10? The answer is no. You will maybe in one data set get 30%, in another data set you might get 30.4%. It will be somewhere near to that. It should be. Okay, it is not exact, it is rather approximate, you can say. Inexact. That way. Okay. So let us see what the numbers suggest. So this is a little plus minus. But if you want, you can draw a diagram. And I always feel it's better to draw a diagram wherever appropriate. So I will draw a line chart now. I'll go to insert. Before I draw that line chart, let me just make a copy of this. So I'll highlight and I'll copy this. Except the grand total, the everything over here I'll copy. The problem is I've got this pivot table giving me a summary of my data, actual data. And then I've got Benford's law percentages which are falling outside the pivot table. So I can't build a diagram by using one column from pivot table and one column outside it. So I'll rather copy this and I'll come here and I'll do something called a space special. I think many of you might be familiar with paste special. You can, after copying, you can come to your destination, just do a right click and choose paste special. Okay. So then you get this window called paste special. Should I magnify a bit? I think if I magnify a little, you might have a better visibility. Okay. Can you see these things better? Okay. So I have activated paste special. You can just do a right click. First copy, go anywhere. So I am somewhere here in 16th row. And I'm going for a right click paste special. And in paste special, I'll choose values and number formats. Okay, so I've got values and number formats. I'll select that, I'll press OK. And then I get this count of first digit and Benford's law percentage. Now I will highlight these two columns or these two fields. And for these two, I would like to generate a chart. Okay, so I highlight this one, this one, this one. I highlight. And then I would like to go to insert. And I'll go to this line chart. And then I'll click on this 2D line chart. My favorite is the line chart. In most of the academic discussions in books and on the web pages, we will see column charts being used. But I'm somewhat more comfortable with line charts. These days I use line charts because lines are continuous. Columns are like one column is separate from another, but line goes as a continuity. So this is a chart. Okay, this is the chart. Now what can you see over here? So the orange line over here is Benford's law line. Okay, whatever Benford's law is telling you. And the blue line over here is your count of first digit, is your actual data. So when you compare the blue line and orange line, what do you see? Okay. So over here, I actually see a spike at 5. I see a little gap at 1 also. And I see a little gap at 9. So there are these 3 digits, 9, 5, and 1. Over there is a little extra allocation. And naturally to compensate, there is relatively less allocation to 2, 3, and 4. Also at 6 and 7, there is a little less allocation. Okay. So this is a little subjective. You will have to look at the diagram and you will have to make out. But maybe what you can do is you can just look at this number 5 and you can just see those transactions more thoroughly. So the moral of the story is if there is a spike over here at 5, you will come to sheet 1 over here and then you will apply a filter on first digit being 5. And now this becomes your sample. Okay, how many records do I get? I still get about 17,000 records, which is still a huge number. I'm looking at the data which is 1,77,000 records. So how many 17,000 numbers start from 5? So those many I will have to check. Okay. If you prefer, you can take this game to the next level. So now that you know that at 5 there is a spike here. Okay, there is a little over allocation to 5. I can see in the original data. We have 9.97%, close to 10% observations belonging to 5, whereas Benford law suggests only 7.92%. So let's go deeper. But within that, again, I am observing that there are 17,000 odd records, more than 17,000 records, which begin with 5. So where should I concentrate now? So again, Benford's law can be taken to the next level also, wherein you can examine the first 2 digits. So let me just call this pivot table as first digit. You can do one more thing. You can draw another diagram, another analysis you can perform for the first 2 digits. Okay. Is everyone with me? Am I going too fast? If let me know if I'm going too fast. If you want some time to, because I want you all to practice this along with me. So I'm doing certain things, and I feel that I'm going at a reasonable pace, but I don't know if I'm too fast or something. Let me know over the chat. Okay, so what you are supposed to do is you are supposed to store this data and apply pivot tables and do this. It's going well. Thank you. Thanks for your feedback. If the speed is correct. Now the only thing is actually is my file about to, it's getting hanged or something. I wonder. I did a clear all and I think that was my mistake in retrospect. I should have just used this. Okay, I'll do one thing. I'll just kill this quickly. I'll just redo this part and maybe that will provide you a little action replay of this. Actually, we have a parallel Zoom meeting going on along with the Excel application, and that's consuming some bit of processing power. Because otherwise, it's just a close to 9 MB file. It's not a very big file, actually. I hope a few things were auto saved here. Okay. So I got my data. Nothing was lost. If I just click here, the clear filter. This is faster actually. I use a different command for clearing the filters, and ordinarily it works well, but today it hanged my file. Okay, sorry. So coming back to this, so we have the first digit here, and we have done an analysis which is like a first digit analysis. Beside that, I would like to do a first two-digit analysis. So which are the first two digits? Again, I can use left function because I know I am supposed to focus on 5, but within that, can I focus more on one of the things? Like, should I focus more on 50? Should I focus more on 51? So that will just let me know if I can save some time. So I'll extract two characters now using the left function. Okay, very simple. I'll use the left function. You don't require actually very great Excel knowledge for forensic investigations. Maybe elsewhere, if you want to build a financial model or if you want to do some kind of automation activities in Excel, you will definitely need a great deal of Excel proficiency. But here our larger focus is on forensic investigations, and Excel is merely a tool at that. So uh, some good knowledge of Excel is sufficient. You don't have to be really an expert. So now we have got these first two digits, and I will build another pivot table which will, I'll do one more thing. I'll just retain only one formula, and I'll do a paste special, and I'll kill the other formula just to save some space. Okay, one formula I'm retaining just for reference, but the other formulas I kill using paste special. Okay, this may or may not be done by you at your end, depending upon your computer's processing power. You can take a call. Okay, I'll now insert another pivot table, which includes my first two digits also. And I'll do the same thing. I'll perform a two-digit analysis. When I put a first two digits, I get so many of them. Okay, naturally, when I talk about first two digits, from 10 it goes up to 99. And I'll drop this first two digits here in values also. So I'll get their counts. How many times 10 has occurred? How many times 11 has occurred? As the first two digits, 1, 1, 1, 2 as the first two digits. I can convert this into percentage, and that it could be more convenient. Percent of grand total. Okay, this part I'm doing same like the previous one. So I'm going a bit faster now. Okay. By default, you have got this count. You come to show values as percent of grand total. Okay. And this gets converted into percentage. And let's calculate Benford's law percentages. What are the Benford's law percentage? The great thing is the formula remains the same. Whether you are doing it for 1 digit, 2 digits, 3 digits, you can apply the same formula, use LUP10 function, and you write 1 plus 1 upon. Now in n, previously it was 1, 2, 3, 4. Now here you write 1, 0. Okay, so actually from an Excel's perspective, it's exactly the same formula. You could have copy pasted it from the previous worksheet here. It's exactly the same. It involves A4 itself, whatever is there in the A4. And then when you copy paste, you get various percentages. You can change the number format. I would like to have it up to 2 decimals so that I can very easily read it. And these numbers I get, if I go to the bottom and if I take a total, if I take a total, the total is 100%. So all the numbers collectively are finishing the probability. Okay, so this is again the Benford's law formula, same formula. I mean, involving that formula here. And now I would like to draw a chart out of this, like earlier. Because I feel chart gives us a better picture than just reading the numbers. So I'll write here first 2 digits. Okay, this is how I would like to write here. And then let me draw a chart. So how do I go about doing that? Before I draw the chart, again I'll go for a pay special. Okay. So I'll just highlight this portion or except grand total everything I'll highlight. I'll copy, I'll come down. This is a little bigger table because you have got 2 digits. I'll go for a pay special values and number formats. Yeah. If I only go for values, I'll see I lose my percentage this format. So I want the percentage format, so I go for values and number formats. And now for this one, I would like to insert a chart. And if you have got minimum Excel 2013, okay, if you have got minimum Excel 2013, you can choose a chart called combo chart. Okay, go anywhere, go to any chart category and then click on more. So I've gone to column charts, I say more column charts. And then it actually shows me all charts window. At the bottom, we have something called as combo chart. So this is also interesting. We could have built a combo chart also in the previous instance. It actually makes more sense in with more numbers. We can of course draw a line chart also. And in this combo chart, I can choose what I would like to have. Now for count of first digit, you can have a column chart. And for Benford's law percentage, you can have a line chart. That's what Excel suggests. Okay, for different series, you can have different charts in a single picture. That is what we mean by combo chart. So here I would like to have a column chart and here I would like to have a line chart. I think I'll go with that suggestion of Excel. I'll press OK. I get a diagram which looks like this. I can make this a bit bigger so that I can see it properly. Okay. Can you see something very clearly? Forget the numbers, but can you see this tall skyscraper here? I think I'll be very interested in this skyscraper and also these two at the beginning. But this one is most interesting because here from this orange line, this height is, I think, relatively a small portion. You can say it's less than 50%, but this is a big leap. So I would like to see this one. Before I see that, I would like to just make one small correction. If you look at this series is wrong. It starts from 1 actually and ends at 89 or 90. But if you check the actual data, in the actual data, it starts at 10 and ends at 99. Correct? So I think there is a gap over here. So what you can do is click on your chart anywhere. And then can you see a chart design tab at the top? Okay, if you have built this chart with me, click anywhere on the chart and then go to the chart design tab or simply design tab. Okay, in different versions, it will show a bit differently. Come to the design tab. And in that design tab, I would like to click on this select data. Okay, select data. And here we have this horizontal category axis labels. Can you see that? Horizontal category axis labels. I'll click on edit. And then I'll come to axis label range. And I'll select this as my label range. Okay. Starting from this first 10, control shift down arrow key, control shift down arrow key will let me quickly select the entire range. So this entire range of numbers I would like to show. When I press OK, so I get my labels. Previously the labels were 1, 2, 3, 4. Now it is showing 10, 11, 12. Okay. You are supposed to click on this select data. In select data, you click on this edit, show this range. Okay. And once the range is shown, just press OK. You get this. You get all these different numbers as uh, the axis labels here. Now press OK. Where has my diagram gone? Here it is. So now if I see here, now look at the captions. This is for 50, right? If I bring my mouse pointer close to this, this is for 50. For 50, the value is 4.14%. And what does Benford series say? Benford series point, it says 0.86%. So if I come here in the table and see with diagram, you can identify this more quickly. With this table, you will have to read each pair and then figure out. And then there are so many pairs. But have a look at this pair. Sorry, 50. Na? Have a look at this pair. There's something noteworthy, isn't it? So there should be only 0.86% value starting from 50, but you have as many as 4.14%. So that's tremendous over allocation towards 50, towards numbers starting with 50. So there are 17,000 numbers starting from 5, but now I know within that if I apply a filter on numbers starting with 50. Okay. Just a second, please. Just one second. Sorry. So now if I look at this first two digits, okay, what I can do is I can just select 50 from here, 50. And now what is my sample size? How many records? 7343. So from 17,000, I have come to 7343. Not only that, see, it's not the question of how many values you are going to see, but how much time you will be wasting. Now I know there is an over allocation to 5 because first of all, there is over allocation to 50. Maybe the other elements also contributed. If I check this further, so I can see over allocation in 50. In fact, in 51, there is under allocation. 52. There is I think 52 is the 50 is the main culprit. In the other ones, if you see, there is hardly any difference. You can probably ignore also the difference. But here you have a tall skyscraper. So these 7,000 observations you definitely need to see. And now you can go further. You can take first 3 digits also. But you need to have minimum 3 digits numbers in that case. Okay. So just see if you have 3 digit numbers, then you can go beyond also. But are you getting the drift? My point is you had your original data when you started your forensic investigation. You had a data of 1,77,000 records. I made the same mistake. Out of habit, I did clear all. Hopefully, this will support this time. My point is, you have got 1,77,000 odd records. Okay. And now we have got 7343 records, which can, which look suspicious. So what proportion is this? It's less than 1%. I think I typed 10 less. It was 1,77,000 records. Okay, 1,77,000. So not 1%, sorry, it's less than 10%. 10% would be 17,000 something, and this would be around, I would say, maybe close to 4% or something. Okay, it might be somewhere close to 4 or 4.5%. So Benford's law is, okay, I'll put it this way. Benford's law is a tool which is used for sampling purposes. Okay, use Benford's law when you want to derive a sample out of your data, because I assure you, if you actually take up a forensic assignment, you'll be inundated with data. There will be so much of data to examine, and you would like to know some pointers. You know, if there are some pointers which point at certain transactions, that look into these transactions, they appear more suspicious. So here, all the numbers which start from zero, all such transactions, there are 7,000 odd transactions. I would like to see their trail. What kind of trail do you get right from the beginning? Now, this is a case of vendor payments. If you see, we have a vendor number, invoice number, amount, vendor invoice numbers, they are there. So I would like to know that on what basis these invoices are drawn. So first of all, is there any material transaction between them? So I'll go through the entire process for these 7,000 transactions. Maybe over there somewhere, as I investigate, I might get something. Okay. So this Benford's law is a tool for sampling. I think my Excel file is still hanged. I'll just close it and reopen it once more. But any questions anybody has? Are you understanding? Maybe I can go to a 3-digit number and I can bring this 7,000 also smaller. You can now apply it. I'll leave that to you in a limited time frame. I don't want to keep repeating the steps again and again. But my question to you is, are you getting the drift? Every time you apply Benford's law, Benford's law as a law of statistics has laid down one pattern for you. Are you getting a pattern other than that? If the answer is yes, then it's a violation, and then you can see violation of law by itself doesn't imply a fraud. It only means a red flag. That means something is wrong. दाल में कुछ काला है. Okay, कुछ गड़बड़ है. So that you need to see to that extent. Okay, maybe after thorough investigation, you may not be able to gather any evidence. You may not have enough evidence to believe that there is necessarily a fraud. Even that's a possibility. So don't consider Benford's law as a sure shot, finder of a fraud. It will only give you some red flags. Okay. So any questions anybody would like to ask about this? Whatever we have discussed till now, anybody has any questions?
Anyone having any question can write in the chat box.
Yes, you can keep writing your questions in the chat box from time to time as things come up. Okay, so that we can address the questions. I would like to, by the way, share with you one, like there's a macro shared with you all already. There are some PowerPoint presentations also. These PowerPoint presentations I have shared like notes. Okay, they will help you later as a recap. Okay, I won't be reading through this PowerPoint PPT because I feel let's take this limited time that we have for practice purpose. We actually do some exercises and we see and later on you can go through the presentation. It's the same thing anyways discussed by me. Okay. By the way, you can use this macro for doing your work. Okay, so if you click on this macro, if you press double click and open this, there's a file over here, and this will let you you will have to enable the content first. Okay, so macros have been disabled by default. You will have to enable the content, and this tool will save your time. Okay, so we did a fair bit of an exercise where we extracted the first digit, then we extracted the first two digits. Okay, then we built two pivot tables here. We built charts also as per our requirement. Okay, and then we came to some conclusion. If we don't want to waste so much time every time, so we can just build a macro. So that macro I have shared with you. PowerPoint also might be there. You can pick up from the Dropbox link. There's a Dropbox link shared by Vivekji at the beginning. So you can pick up from there. I just request Vivekji to share the Dropbox link once more, just in case somebody has joined a bit late. So you can pick up from there. I hope at least the Excel file is with you. If the Excel file is with you, then you can work accordingly. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll come back to this. Okay, I have this data, I've got these numbers. I will just make use of this file, this Benford's law macro. And using this macro, I'll directly come to the result. I've given the steps over here. Okay, step 1 is clear the existing data in column A. Do you have any data in column A? I can see something in column A over here. I already have some values. Okay, I can press Control Shift down and I can press the delete key. So now I've got the blank slate. In other columns, you can't do anything. Okay, if you go elsewhere, you won't be able to work. You are only supposed to work in column A, put data here. So just put your data. So from this E2 cell, I'll press Control Shift down. I'll copy everything. I'll copy all these numbers. And I'll come here. I'll do a paste special of values. Okay, you can do Control C, Control V also, or do paste special. That I'll leave to you. First, delete the existing data. Then put your data in column A. Okay, now simply press the Go button. So now that you have pasted your data, press Go button. It will take you a few seconds. And eventually you will get this message box, macro is over. Okay. All you need to do is put your data and press this button. Wait for a few seconds. After a few seconds, you will get this notification that macro is over. Okay, so now extraction of first digit, second digit, first two digits, everything is done by Excel. You come to first digit analysis, and you can see the same chart, correct? This was the chart that we had got. You have the same percentages. So that's natural because the percentage are same, the chart is also the same. If you come to two-digit analysis, okay, the last worksheet, if you come to two-digit analysis, this was exactly the chart that we got. So everything boiled down to a click of a button. Just put the numbers and you get the output. So how this has to be achieved is something already pre-programmed, is created. You just have to enjoy. So my objective is that you need not waste your time doing activities by yourself. Okay, just use technology, put this macro or whatever, and use this, and then come to the analysis part, because in analysis part, definitely your time and your skills, your knowledge, your intelligence will be used. We also have a second digit analysis. Okay, second digit analysis tells you whether there is any over allocation to second digit. So here we can see at 0 there is an over allocation. Very clearly we can see. So if your second digit is 0, Then ordinarily Benford's law suggests that second digit being 0 happens in case of 11.97% observations of your total observations. But in actual data, we have 17.88%. And which we saw in case of 5-0. In case of this also, 1-0 also, I think, right? In 1-0 also, there is over allocation. In 1-1, there is over allocation. So all three deserve to be examined. I have taken example of only 5-0, but similarly, you should also check 1-0 and 1-1. There is over allocation. See, you can check over allocation. You can't check under allocation. Okay, naturally to compensate for these over allocations, there must be under allocations elsewhere. But it's difficult to check the under allocation. Okay, see, because over allocation is happening because of maybe some fraudulent transactions, some transactions which were cooked up. They don't have any legal or they don't have any valid basis. Okay, there are no commercial reasons maybe why certain transactions should happen. Still, you have past entries, and those transactions are sitting in the data, and that's where there is an inflated allocation that you can establish. Now, because you made some extra transactions in some numbers, the other numbers went in deficit. How we are going to prove that? So always you should look at the over allocations. I don't think there is much utility in looking at under allocations because you can't prove anything out of it. And a forensic report should be conclusive. It should be evidence based. It should be, in fact, an evidence which will stand in court of law. So look for these ones and then you trace further. Okay. So in a nutshell, I would like to summarize this way that Benford's law is a law which we can use in our forensic investigations where you have a numerical data sample is more than 1,000 observations, then you can use this. And it lays down a pattern of the first digit, and also you can derive it for second digit also. We have derived it. Okay. A lot of studies have taken place now. Now we have formulas for first digit, second digit, first two digits, and so on. Last digit. Okay. So in case you see any over allocations, you can then check it in detail. It will be a red flag. Okay. It won't be a conclusive evidence by itself, but it's a red flag that something is wrong. Okay. Use the macro to save your time. Just put your data and press the button. And then just go ahead with your analysis. Does anyone have any questions to ask? Does anyone want to ask any questions on Benford's law? If things are clear till here, or at present, if you don't have any questions, I would like to move on then to the next topic. Okay, the next topic is on relative size factor. Is anyone aware of this concept? Obviously, those who have done FAFD course from ICI or maybe similar courses may refrain from answering, but those who have not done any courses, by chance, are you aware of relative size factor? There is something called as relative size factor. Okay. If I ask what is RSF, the typical answer is relative size factor. So that's the long form. But what is it exactly? Anyone knows that? Okay. Anybody from the some participants may have already done this course on FAFD or something. So anybody, absolutely anybody who would like to throw some light on what is a relative size factor, they like to describe it. RSF or relative size factor, anybody would like to share his thoughts? Now, as the name may suggest, relative size factor is talking about a relative size. Okay. So I will take example of the same data once more. Let me save this. Actually, I should have made copies. Let me make a copy of this as Benford's law. We have looked at Benford's law, correct? So I save it as a Benford's law. Now I'll open this other file and remove the other things. Pardon me, the files are taking a little bit of time for opening, closing, etc. The processor is used in Zoom. This Zoom meeting, it is used much more. Okay. I'll just remove the other work. And then we also have this working, that also I'll remove. So we come back to this data. Okay. These two columns themselves I'll delete. Okay. Now what is relative size factor? It tries to compute a ratio between the largest value and the second largest value. Okay. So when you say a relative size factor, you're basically looking at a ratio between the largest value divided by second largest value. Now you are looking at the same data but from a different view. You are attacking the data with a different angle. Okay, one was Benford's law. Benford's law has given me a set of transactions which are suspicious transactions, which I feel are suspicious, 7,000 plus transactions, and which I need to see in details. Maybe if I see them in details, then I might find something. Okay. And there also I can give you a hint. Maybe you can, I've got 7,000 transactions, but many transactions are 50 rupees, 500 rupees also. So you can start with a hierarchy. That first you look at bigger amounts, those amounts which are greater than 1 lakh. Because if I'm going to make fraudulent transactions, so I want to make a fraud of 50 or 500 or 5,000 rupees, right? If I do that, then it's more of a pilferage. It's a very lower level fraud. So when we are investigating frauds which may run into several crores or several hundred or thousands of crores of transactions, so in that case, it's better to look at larger quantum. So that way, maybe that 7,000 will get further shortlisted to 2,000. And then that you can see. That is one way of looking at it. Second way is, let's calculate this ratio. Okay, and this ratio is typically calculated for each vendor. Okay, the idea is that you have a largest value and second largest value for a vendor with whom you have a series of transactions. Now suppose his largest value turns out to be 25 lakhs and his second largest value is 1 lakh, then the ratio is 25 times, correct? So if you have got 25 lakhs and 1 lakh, so when I divide, the largest is 25, second largest is 1 lakh, and then there are smaller transactions also. So net my RSF value is 25. The RSF value is 25. So this becomes a red flag. So if you have transactions where your values are like 25 as the largest, 1 as the second largest, 0.8 as the third largest, 0.7 as the fourth largest, 0.65 as the, and 0.62 and 0.6 and so on. So, when this data builds up, you can see that they are more or less close to each other. And this value suddenly looks very big, doesn't it? If I multiply everything by 1 lakh, this is how it will look like actually. And look at the quantums. If you see this, you can make out quite clearly, right? This is 25 lakhs, this is 1 lakh, and then these are just in tens of thousands, not even 1 lakh. So many transactions are less than 1 lakh. There's one transaction which is barely at 1 lakh and one transaction at 25 lakh. So this becomes a red flag. You would like to see this. Okay. You would like to see why this transaction of 25 lakhs was performed. Many times a particular vendor has some limit or has some level of making transactions. Suddenly a very higher amount of transaction is made that should get highlighted somewhere, right? This is a very large value transaction. If nothing else, this can also be an error, right? These days we make digital payments. Suppose you are required to make a payment of 25,000 or say even 2,50,000. Somewhere you typed 10 extra and suddenly 2,50,000 becomes 25 lakhs. And if yours is a company which otherwise has a cash flow of several hundreds of crores every day, maybe at least for a few days you may not realize this, that there is a transaction of 25 lakhs. Instead of 2,50,000, you made a payment of 25 lakhs. It might take you a couple of days, 2, 3 days, 5 days for you to discover it. Okay. And probably that's something you would like to discover much earlier. So in case you are providing concurrent audit services to banks, or if you are providing concurrent audit services to anybody really on a daily basis, in that case, you can perform this audit. You can perform this check that maybe not intentionally necessarily, but unintentionally has there been a mistake like this. And this can be unearthed only by relative size factor. Okay, the principle behind this is when you have a set of transactions which are much smaller, why one high value transaction was performed. We are going to ask, as forensic auditor, we are going to ask. We are neither going to say that it's a fraud, nor we are going to say it is not a fraud. And the right of inquiry lies with you. Correct? So this is at a concept level. Have you understood the concept? Okay, you pick hold of the largest transaction and the second largest transaction, merely take a ratio, no complex calculations, there is no logarithms, nothing like that sort. Very simple concept, very simple tool. And let us see whether this tool is going to help us identify anything. So now I request you to come to your data, make a copy of that data. Okay, keep this as the original file. So this is going to be original for me also. Let me see what's the size. Now the size is still showing at 15,317. Okay. So I'll now save this as a workbook with RSF as the suffix. Okay, same data, but now I'm keen on uh, performing the RSF analysis here. Shantanu Goriji has a question. If I require second largest value and fifth largest value for any reason, still RSF will work. Yeah, so I think I'll rephrase your question in a different way. Your question could be something like this, that if I consider second largest value and fifth largest value, can I still use the concept of RSF? Can I redefine the RSF as second largest value divided by fifth largest value? For some reason you want to do that. By all means, you can do that. Not only you can do that, but you should do that. I'll come to that part a bit later. So you have asked a very good question actually, Shantanu ji. and I will refer to your question once more after a few minutes. But for now, we will go ahead and we will make the basic calculation of RSF. Okay, and I'll come back to your question maybe after a few minutes, maybe after 10-15 minutes. Okay, so I'll park your question. Maybe I partly answered that, but I'll fully answer that afterwards. Okay, so now let me come back to this. Okay. Just give me 1 minute. Sorry, somebody was calling, so I just cut the call and dropped a message. Okay, so coming back to this, now here we need to make a vendor-wise calculation. Okay, so while the concept looks very easy, okay, what you have to do, just the largest divided by second largest. It's a very simple ratio, but in a real life data, you might get data again, which is going, in lakhs of transactions. How many vendors you have? If you pick hold of a going concern, there might be so many vendors. For each vendor, are you going to perform largest upon second largest, and are you planning to perform that as a manual calculation, just as a formula? Okay, so that becomes an issue. Okay, so what I suggest you do is, let's make use of an Excel formula. Okay, some Excel functions we are going to use over here. Okay, and based on that we'll be able to do it. Okay, so okay, I'll just call it RSF. Let's add one more column. There is an Excel function if. I suppose most of you are aware of that function. Okay, using if function we can do this. If the idea is at each change, oh sorry, one thing before I go ahead, we need to sort this data. Okay, if we are going to make vendor wise calculation, we need to have those vendor wise transactions over here at one place. Same vendor should come one below the other, right? So first thing is we'll sort the data. Okay, before we apply the formula for RSF, let's first sort it. So I'll go to the data tab, and inside data tab I've got the sort button. So I'll click on this sort button. My data has headers, sort by vendor number. So first of all, we will sort by vendor number. Okay, smallest to largest, instead of smallest to largest, you can choose anything, smallest to largest or anyhow. Then you will add a level, then by amount. Now this amount can be largest to smallest. Okay, so vendor number smallest to largest, amount can be largest to smallest. Not only can be, but it should be largest to smallest. I'll press OK, and this gets sorted. Okay, and now I can calculate the RSF. But again, if I sort this data, okay, I'll show the sorting scheme once more just in case somebody has missed it. Okay, so we'll sort by vendor number, smallest to largest, or anyhow, this doesn't matter. But amount you should sort necessarily by largest to smallest. So amount will be largest to smallest. You'll press OK. And now here you have the largest amount, here you have the second largest amount. You calculate a ratio, this upon this. This is your RSF. Okay. But this ratio you cannot calculate for each value one by one like this. I mean, definitely you can't just calculate this ratio and just do a copy paste. If you do it direct copy paste, that will be incorrect. Okay. Are you going to make a ratio like this when the vendor number is still 2001? It's the same vendor, isn't it? So what we'll do is, instead of this, we will put an if formula. Okay, so this is the point where if function comes handy. The idea is very simple. I am going to make one calculation per vendor, but for each vendor there can be hundreds or thousands of transactions. So I'll say if this vendor number is the same as is not the same as the previous vendor. Okay, if B2 is not equal to B1. Okay, this is one point where you will have to concentrate a bit and understand. If B2 is not equal to B1, I say, then make a calculation of this upon this. That is, if I am coming across a vendor, a new vendor, okay, so definitely 2001 is not the same thing as this vendor number. Okay, so E2 upon E3 is what I'll calculate if they are unequal. Otherwise, I will not calculate. So if I copy this formula down, somewhere down, you will have the current vendor number also 2001 and previous vendor number also will be 2001. Okay. If both are same, then I'm not interested in calculating RSF. So just for the sake of getting a numeric field, I'll put 0. 0 is a dummy value. Actually, your RSF cannot be 0, right? Even if it is a 1 rupee transaction, one transaction is of 1 rupee and the other transaction is of 2 rupees, then 2 divided by 1 will give you 2. So you will not get 0 unless it's a transaction of 0, the highest value being 0. So highest upon second highest. And you will, that's practically impossible. So 0 is serving over here as a dummy value. So I'm putting this as 0. I close the bracket, I hit enter, and I get this value 1.16, which I can drag till below. And I might get a set of values here. Okay, so this is now working well. Okay, I would like to copy paste this formula in the chat box for your ready reference. Okay, this is the formula. Have a look at the way it works. If the current vendor is not the same vendor as the previous one, previous line item, then make this calculation, else stay quiet at 0. When I go to the next line, in the next line, current is 2001, previous also 2001. So I just populate 0 and I stay quiet. So this goes on. Okay. For several rows, this will go on. Eventually, somewhere down, you will have 2002. I'll better find that using Control F. 2002, somewhere down, we have, in fact, in row number 4699. And there you see a calculation is performed. 4.13 is the answer. While it was performed here, why not earlier? Earlier, for the same reason, your vendors are same. But this is a line item after a long time where your current vendor number is 2002 and the previous vendor number is 2001. So we calculate this ratio then. Okay. Again, in the next line item, what happens? In the next line item, current is 2002, previous is also 2002. So we don't calculate. Okay. Right. So this is how it goes on. Okay. One by one, the different ratios are computed. And then eventually we get this RSF. Okay, any questions still here? Are you able to apply this formula? I want you all to try this. This formula, first thing is you need to sort the data. Okay, this is the sorting scheme. Reserve is sort first on the vendor, then on the amount. Amount has to be descending, largest to smallest. We are interested in largest upon second largest. So the largest number should come at the top and the second largest below that. So I want to perform that ratio, but I can't do it for every line item. Otherwise, it is pointless if I do it that way. So I lay down this condition. I use if function and I lay down a condition that the current vendor number should be different from the previous. Then calculate this ratio, else put 0. And then I get this. Okay. Second thing. Second thing is I'll also put one more thing. One more thing I would like to highlight when I come to the bottom. I can see that there are some calculations here happening in case of a single vendor entry. So I got single vendor also over here, right? So vendor number 52, 901, 902, 903, 904, and so on. Single vendors. So how do I accommodate single vendors? I need to then calculate this as uh, when it is a single vendor transaction, my current vendor number will be different from the previous vendor number, but current vendor number should be same as the next vendor number. Okay, because in a single vendor number, there is no point in calculating RSF. Are you getting the point? So here we have 50 to 920. Should I calculate RSF here? I think it doesn't make any sense because previous one is different, agreed, but next one is also different. So this is a single transaction. So in case you have the previous one as the same, that is one point, that the previous one and the current one should be different, but current one and the next one should be same. That is also a point, right? So here the current and the previous are different, but current and the next are same. So you are in a position to calculate RSF. So I'll just add to my formula using another function called AND function. Okay, in Excel there is one more function called AND which can let you do this. So you keep your cell pointer immediately after your if function, and if you put the cursor there, and then you insert AND function. Okay, a function called AND, where you say, here's my logical one. Logical one is B2 is not equal to B1. Another logical is that my B2 must be equal to B3. Okay, B2 is not equal to B1, but B2 is equal to B3. Okay, these two logicals are there. Okay, two things I'm laying down and I want both the things to be satisfied. So B2 is not equal to B1, that is 1, and B2 is equal to B3, that is 2. Okay. If both are satisfied, then I will make this calculation, else I'll stay at 0. Okay, so I get this. Now you see, somewhere down if I go, I don't get any calculations for that. My time won't be wasted because these are single transaction vendors for whom I cannot apply the concept of RSF. There might be a possibility of fraud, at least RSF won't show that. Okay, I'm not saying that you can't have a fraud with a single transaction vendor, but at least RSF tool is incapable of that. Maybe some other tool you will have to use, some other idea you will have to form. Okay, so this is my final formula, which I want all of you to just try this one. I would like to paste it once more in the chat box. Okay, in case you are not able to completely understand this, like how exactly to construct this from left to right, I recommend you for now copy paste this formula. I've already shared it on chat. Okay, and go ahead. The session is getting recorded, so you can watch the recording later. But for now, you can just put it in your cell. Copy from the chat box and put it in your cell. Copy paste so that you will be with me. Okay. Is everyone with me? I would like to ask whether everyone's with me. Let me see if the file is there. Okay. All right. So should we move further? Is everybody through doing this particular part? Okay. All right. So let's move on. There's one person at least who is doing with me. Okay. All right. So I'll move on for now. Okay. Because if you have made this calculation, then I can probably you will understand it better, whatever I'm saying.
Hello.
Right? Yeah. Hello.
Sir, I was using your earlier formula, the above one, only the if one. My last cell is coming some numerical error,
Hash
division.
div. Haha. Yes. Yes. You'll get a divisor zero error. Because if you see, yeah, that you can overlook for now. See, our original formula was this way. If I just delete this one cell, or what I'll do only for the last cell, I'll remove that and portion. So what was the condition? The second condition I will remove, and I'll just restore this one. So actually, uh, you are not supposed to do it for a single vendor, but our first formula was calculating it for single vendor also. So the condition is the current vendor number different from the previous vendor number? Yes, both are different. And then we have this upon this, that calculation we are performing. Because the vendor numbers are different, the ratio is not tallying. I mean, the ratio needs to be computed, but then the divisor is zero. Hence, you are getting a hash div error. You are trying to divide 16.3 with a blank cell, that's zero. But in the first place, why you are making a calculation at all? Because the vendor numbers are not same. Na? Vendor numbers are different. That is there, but it's a single transaction vendor. They are different. That is one thing, but it's a single transaction. So in our second version of formula, we worked upon it. So we are laying down two conditions. Which are the two conditions? That the current vendor number should be different from the previous, and the current should be same as the next. Here, both the conditions are getting violated. Not both, but one of them. The current is not the same as previous, correct? But the current is different from the next. If I copy paste down, current and previous are different, but current is not same as the next. Current is different from the next also, because the next vendor is in fact a blank cell. So while this logical one is satisfied, logical two is not satisfied. So overall it populates zero and gets out. Okay. So we got that divisor zero error only because it was trying to divide by zero, but our improved version of formula will take care of that automatically. All right.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. Any other question? Anyone else is having any other question? If there are no questions, then we can just take it ahead. Let me know if you have any questions. But I want everybody to be with me with this calculation. Okay, this calculation should be ready. And at the in the worst case, if you are not completely sure, because everybody comes from a different background. If your Excel is not that strong, okay. So in that case, for now, you can copy paste this formula. Okay, this is the only tough part in this, and then rest is easy. Now, moving on to the conclusions. Okay, now the time has come for conclusions. Again, just to save the bandwidth, what I'll do is I'll use space special and I'll kill the other formulas. I'll leave formula in one cell for reference, and these values are generated. Now I don't need the formula. So I'll come to this cell, Control Shift down, copy, and then I'll activate paste special, and then I'll choose values and I'll press OK. Okay. So this is how I will go about doing it. Now, let's analyze this. Let's come to the part of analysis and let's see. So what we are going to do now is we will apply filters here. And I'll apply first filter on RSF. Now you need to use a thumb rule. See, if you have got 3,30,000 as the first one and 2,83,000 as the second one, it may not be perceived by you as a red flag. The RSF is merely 1.16. But you need to consider some of the other threshold, right? So typically RSF greater than 10 is regarded as a red flag. Okay. This is a thumb rule, but I suggest you don't necessarily take it in a very rigid sense. It can be RSF greater than 10, it can be RSF greater than 5, greater than 7. Okay, as per your situation, you mold yourself. Okay, don't be very rigid on this. But for now, we'll go by the textbook principle. We'll go by RSF greater than 10. Okay. So this value, I'll use a number filter and I'll choose greater than 10. Large RSFs where there is a wide gulf between the largest and the second largest. Now I'll be a little practical here. Look at the first vendor here, 2028. RSF is 21 times. Okay, definitely a large RSF value. But look at the amount. Amount involved is 1349, and this is the largest value. Okay, the second largest value is much lesser than that. This value is 21 times the second largest value. So, do we really want to spend time on these amounts? You need to ask yourself. Look at this value. This is also the same thing. 3046, 414, 42,000. It is 124 times. RSF value is very large, but 42,000 is the highest value. So maybe what I'll do is I will apply another filter on amount. Okay, I strongly recommend that. You apply another filter on amount and you go for number filters and decide a threshold, a minimum threshold, at least in terms of priority. Let me at least prioritize and look at those values first, which are pretty large. And then if time permits, I'll come back to smaller ones. So is greater than, I will go for 1 lakh. Okay. Maybe depending on your situation, you may decide 1 lakh, 10 lakhs, 1 crore. Okay. What kind of transactions do you see here? So I'll apply filter on 1 lakh. I'll press OK. And now I've got a much smaller set of transactions where the largest value is greater than 1 lakh and the second largest value and the other things we can see. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll just note down quickly these vendor numbers. Maybe I'll insert one more sheet. And over here, I'll note down the vendor numbers. These are the 8 vendor numbers where whom I would like to see in greater details. Now, the subsequent part of RSF is just a scrutiny. Okay, now you are going to scrutinize the transactions one by one. See, beyond a point, you will come to a point where subsequently you will have to go for a manual verification. I think I made the mistake for third time now. Okay, too habituated to the keyboard shortcuts. So at a subconscious level, I trigger those keyboard shortcuts. Pardon me for that. Okay, sorry. So what I'll do is I'll clear the filters from here. This is going to be much faster. And now I'll scrutinize one by one. Okay, this is my data. I applied filters and I got a short listing over here. Let's look at vendor number 2398. So I'll come to vendor number 2398 and over here I'll apply filter on that. His highest value is greater than 1 lakh and he has a significant RSF greater than 10 at least. There are some other ones also, so I'll go for exactly 2398. There are only 4 transactions. So you can see you have a transaction on 8th January of 2010 and then 13th January, 11th February and 14th December. They are just close to 30 rupees and suddenly one transaction pops out 7,31,000. So what are these 30 rupees transactions? Maybe these are some adjustments. Okay, we don't know. We better ask this. As an auditor, you should not try to think from auditor's angle. Okay, your job is to raise questions and auditor's job is to answer that. So let him answer. Okay. So this is how it looks. 2745 is the next one. I'll apply the next filter on 2745. Okay, this is more interesting than the first one. So if you look at the things, you have many transactions which are like 39,000, 31,000, 19,000, 10,000, 3,000. And then there is one transaction suddenly at 5,18,000. This is something very interesting. This needs to be asked. See, every vendor has a level. You are doing one level of transaction with that vendor. Okay. Suddenly, there is one very high value transaction. So you need to ask, what is so special? You check the complete trail of this transaction. So here we are marking a transaction. Actually, this transaction needs to be checked. The other transactions won't be a fraud, at least as per RSF tool. Maybe some other tool will point them out. But as per RSF, these seem to be regular transactions, and this is an exceptional transaction. So this becomes my red flag. So maybe I'll mark this in red color, a reddish background. Okay. Are you getting the point? Similarly, we can try one or two more. 3524. Equals 3524. Just 3 transactions. Again, you need to check when these two amounts are so small. Why this one? And one last example, I'll take 4199. Oh, we have a plethora of transactions. How many are there? 65 transactions. Actually, more the count, no? More is the interesting story. With two, three transactions, anything is possible. But this really brings out the pattern. So you have many transactions which are worth 60,000. Now here a human eye is, I think, more helpful than a computerized program. As you might see, we have transactions which are 60,000, 59,000, 22,000, 15,000, and such values. And suddenly there is one transaction at the top which is 16 lakh 5,000. Isn't this worth asking? We need to check that who approved such transactions, on what basis this kind of work was given. Okay, when our topic is investigations, okay, I think this topic name was coined very carefully. If you go and check the topic name for today, it is using Excel for forensic investigations. So the word used is investigation and not audit. Though I have used the word audit 50 times till now, but actually the term is, the word used is investigations, where you are going to go more intensively and with a bloodhound mindset rather than watchdog mindset. So you need to really ask. You will not only go for the supporting document, supporting voucher. You will not be merely satisfied by looking at, okay, there is a 16 lakhs of amount and then there is a 16 lakhs of voucher behind that. Okay, but you will trace it completely and maybe you will go one step ahead and you will ask yourself, was this transaction even necessary? Right from there. Then who is the vendor? Who is this kind of a vendor with whom such repeated transactions are made? And is there any relation? Is that vendor a related party? Now the vendor may not exist also sometimes. So is that a fictitious person? Where is his place of work? You can even decide to visit the place of work just to verify his identity. Uh, those kind of things you will undertake as a forensic auditor, as an investigator. You will not necessarily do that with as a typical statutory auditor. Okay. So I think I would like to definitely check the roots of this transaction. Okay, invoice number 141.04. Okay, why this invoice was raised, on what basis? Okay, so RSF tool points out these kind of transactions. Okay, are you understanding the discussion? Any questions? Does anyone want to ask any questions, Celia? Invoice. I didn't understand your question. Invoice number differs, is it? Invoice number differs. Uh, what do you? What exactly do you mean to say? Binoji, maybe you can just unmute yourself and ask the question. For the previous one? Okay. I'll check with the previous one. Yeah, that can also be one thing. Okay, that is also a good observation. I didn't specifically pay attention to that. But what you are saying makes sense. You have invoice numbers starting with 3. So that's another good point. Okay, this can be a possibility. Other invoice number starting at 3, and only this particular invoice number, the series is 1 series. Okay, this is again a question that needs to be asked. Let that person furnish an explanation why it was 1 series invoice. But you can make a mental note of it and you can ask. Okay. So that professional skepticism is a very helpful skill here, that inquiring mindset. Why this? Why that? So that helps. Yes, that is one thing. Yeah, apart from that, any other questions anybody is having? I hope the calculation is clear to everybody, the kind of formula that we laid down and the subsequent analysis. Now I have shortlisted 1 lakh. Maybe you can shortlist on the basis of 10,000. Somebody else will shortlist on the basis of 10 lakh. You'll have to take the judgment looking at the numbers that are involved and the kind of expected fraud quantum. I often use 1 lakh as the filters in the assignments that we do. But there is no compulsory thing. There is no hard and fast rule about it. Now I will come to the question what Shantanu Goreji had raised some time back, and I'll take it to its conclusion. Okay. Um, what he had asked was, let me scroll a bit and show the question once more to everyone. If I require second largest value and fifth largest value for any reason, still RSF will work. So basically, can you, what I understood as his question was that can you use second largest value and fifth largest value for RSF purpose? And if I have to generalize this, I'll put it this way. Can I use a definition other than largest upon second largest in RSF? Okay, RSF has been defined as a largest value divided by second largest value. But can I consider some alternate values? Maybe second largest and fifth largest and something like that. So you can definitely do that. Not only you can do that, but you should do that. You should do that. The problem is if you use only largest upon second largest. Let me give you one example. If I come to 2004, suppose, okay. Uh, 2003, in fact. Look at 2003. Now 2003 has RSF as 1. Why it has RSF as 1? It has it as 1 because the largest and the second largest value match. So if somebody becomes aware that RSF as a concept is used, then he may try to manipulate a bit. He may try to divide. Now that 16 lakh figure was there in case of 4199. Okay, it can be broken as 8 lakhs, 8 lakhs or 8 lakhs, 7 lakhs. You will get a very small RSF value and he will escape. Correct? So instead of making one transactions, what if somebody makes 2 transactions or 3 large transactions? Okay, and then you have a series of small, small transactions. RSF by its conventional definitions won't be able to catch that. So you need to redefine RSF. And I would like to suggest some measures of RSF to you, some alternate measures of RSF to you, and you can invent yours also. I have till now invented 3 measures of RSF. Okay, out of which 1 or 2 I would like to show here. Okay, in the interest of time, I won't be able to show all of them, but some of them I would like to show. Okay, so if you want, you can watch this part or you can parallelly perform it with me. Okay. Um, just see how it is. Make sure that you are in any case understanding the concept. Give more importance to understanding the concept. And I will go at a reasonable speed. I would ideally like you to practice it with me. But just in case you feel that while practicing, you are not able to focus on the concept. So then you can give a slight precedence to understanding it. But first try it with me. Okay, I would like to build a pivot table on this. So I'll highlight this much. I won't highlight the RSF column. I won't require the RSF column. But I'll highlight from A to E and I'll press Control Shift down and I'll highlight this much array. And I would like to insert a pivot table here. On the basis of this much data, I'll press OK. I get a new blank sheet. I just rename it as pivot. So I just call it as data. Okay. Now here I have got this pivot sheet. What I would like to do is I would like to redefine my RSF as max divided by average. How about that? How about having an RSF which is defined as maximum value divided by average value? Because maximum is the topmost value, second max is number two value. You are considering only two numbers, whereas with a particular vendor, I might have 50 transactions in a year. So there might be 50 numbers. You focus only on the top two, and it is not difficult to manipulate top two. Top two, top three, top four may be manipulated. Can I base it on all values and see? So that's where I now propose to redefine RSF as max upon average. And for that purpose, I will drag and drop this amount. First of all, I'll drag and drop vendor number here. Good thing about pivot table is automatically sorted. You don't have to sort. So vendor number I've dropped in rows, that is one. Second thing is I drop this amount in values and then I get sum. But actually I'm not interested in sum. I'm interested in max. So I'll click on this sum of amount value of field settings and then I'll come to max. I'll choose max, I'll press OK. So then I get max of amount. Okay, I'll drag and drop amount in sum of amount once more. I get sum of amount. This I will change to average. Okay, using some basic ideas of pivot tables. Instead of sum, I'm deriving a max, I'm deriving an average. And can I take a ratio of this? Okay, now I've resorted to pivot tables because actually pivot tables is very easy. You just have to do drag drop, drag drop. Okay, in if we had to first of all sort this data and then apply the if formula, which was not so uncomplicated. So that was a bit of an effort. But with pivot tables, now you have got vendor wise its own max value and the average value. Max value and average value are differing. We would like to take a ratio over here. So I would like to define RSF as max upon average over here, and let me calculate that. What will be RSF as max upon average? Now I don't know whether you have made calculations on pivot tables before. Okay, but those who have made calculations on RSF, sorry, on pivot table, might be aware that if you try to involve pivot table values, you get pivot data. Okay, divided by when I show this number again, I get pivot data. So getting get pivot data is a pretty common thing. Okay, we get pivot data many times. So actually at some other point we will talk more about get pivot data. Right now, let's take a very easy way out right now, because this get pivot data may potentially create an issue. Typically when we make calculations like this, you get the first value correct, and when you drag drop, the problem is that you get the same value everywhere. That becomes an issue. Okay, get pivot data, if you use it as it is, the way it's generated by Excel, you'll get the same value. The problem is not with get pivot data per se, but I don't want to get into that much. Let's use a very easy way out. Easy way out is don't actually click on this cell. If you click on this cell, you will get pivot data. So a simpler way would be you type your cell references. We don't ordinarily do that, but in an exceptional situation like this, we might do that. Equal to B4 divided by C4. So B4 by C4 we can do. You can type like that, B4 divided by C4. And now when I drag this, it actually shows different values. Okay, so these are my revised values of RSF with the new definition max upon average. And you can see the very first vendor which had escaped in the previous example has now come here. See, think logically. Forget you may not be aware of RSF. You may not call it as RSF. But see whether this, whether you can digest this. That the maximum amount is 3,30,000 something, and the average amount transaction is 2,600. So RSF now turns out to be 127 times. Your largest value is 127 times the average value. Won't you like to see some of the top values? So not one value now, but as far as 2001 is concerned, let us consider these top few values, maybe all values exceeding 1 lakh. We would like to see, because if you scroll down enough for 2001, okay, this hanging of Excel is giving you some breather in between. So 2001, if I come to 2001, and if I go to the bottom part of it, you have some small transactions like 10 rupees, 12 rupees also, which actually sounds very funny. Why do I have 10 rupees, 12 rupees transactions? But I also have transactions like 3 lakh, 1 lakh, 9 lakh. See, ordinarily, you won't make so many transactions. One or two transactions could be adjustment transactions, wherein a few transactions like this happen. And as adjustments, they come here. But then so many of them, I think, isn't it a matter of surprise? These kind of frauds were done in the past, where, if you are a bank, in your bank's banking system, in the core banking system, if I am the programmer, I'll write a program that while you allow interest to your deposit holders, suppose the interest is 338 rupees 63 paise. Mathematical answer is 338 rupees 63 paise. I will deposit 338 rupees in that customer's account, and I'll deposit 63 paise in another account, which is my own account. Okay, my own account in one way or the other. So every time the integer portion of the amount goes into the deposit holder and the decimal portion, the paise portion, comes into my account. For an individual deposit holder, if he is getting 338 rupees or 338 rupees 63 paise, he is indifferent between the two, and he will ignore the 63 paise shortfall. He will say that okay, it's rounding off. He will ignore it. He will not report it. Many people may not even bother to check it. Okay, unless they get a significant difference, they will not bother to verify the calculation also. But I, on the other hand, may receive 63 paise from one person, 38 paise from another person, 22 paise from third person, and it will accumulate over a period of time because there are thousands and lakhs and crores of customers who are putting paise in my account. Okay, so then I might see transactions like these. Okay, not exactly in this example, but in a different scheme, I might see very small transactions and very large transactions. Here, suppose I might see transactions only in paise, but in some other example, if I do something like this, I can see some very small transactions also, along with the large transactions. So this is a little confusing why you are getting these things. Yeah, I will definitely ask because suppose in lakhs of rupees, if I'm dealing, then maybe I'm purchasing material from him. And if I'm paying him 10 rupees, 15 rupees, and 20 rupees, and 25 rupees, then he's a chai wala, right? He might be a roadside tea vendor whom I'm paying transactions like this, and he's raising invoice also. Okay, I would like to ask this. So this got completely escaped in the conventional definition of RSF, but when I use the revised definition of RSF, then this got caught. Okay, So there can be many more things. In fact, it may not be a bad idea to also obtain a count. So I'll insert one column here and I will also derive a count of this. I'll take vendor number and I'll put here, and then I get a count of vendor number. How many? By default it is a sum. I'll change the sum to count. If I change the sum to count, I drag and drop vendor number here and I change this value field settings to count. Now what I'm getting is how many transactions am I doing? Okay. So a very high number of transactions ranging from 10 rupees to this. What kind of vendor is this? Let us at least understand. He may turn out to be a very genuine vendor. But I think this is worth asking, isn't it? And RSF brings us to that. Okay. Needless to say, here also you can apply a filter of 1 lakh. So the next fellow is 52,000 and 323. I'll ignore them. Although, anyways, the RSF values are also not very high. So on the whole, I'll apply filter here. And then I'll apply filter on greater than 10. And the next filter I'll apply on max of amount over here. Greater than. So I should be looking at only these vendors. It's taking a few seconds to update it. Taking its own sweet time actually. Can anyone think of any other ideas by the time this gets loaded? We can just have a quick discussion. Any other ideas on RSF? Like what else can be the alternative definitions of RSF? I thought of one more, RSF can be max upon median. Let me put that in chat box. So we can also define it as max divided by median. The only problem is our pivot tables don't give us median. So you'll have to go back to Excel. You'll have to put a formula and you'll have to derive the median. Okay. So that's not as easy as it sounds. You'll have to use an array formula for that. But that you can do. Similarly, max upon mode also you can go for. Though mode is a little difficult in case of amounts because the same amounts need not appear again and again. So mode will give you most frequently occurring transaction based on how many times that value has occurred. But when it comes to amount, every amount can be different, and that is fine. Your every amount with that vendor will actually be different. Okay, so I'm not sure to what extent mode will be practicable here, but definitely you can use max upon median. I have also defined RSF on the lower end of the spectrum. Okay, so here we are looking at it on the higher end of the spectrum, where we are talking about largest upon second largest, or largest upon mean, or largest upon median, or largest upon mode. But why we are ignoring the lower end of the spectrum? So can we also define it as, so I thought of defining it like this: second smallest upon smallest. Okay, going by the conventional way, the way we have largest upon second largest, I thought let me have a converse of that. That is second smallest upon smallest. I don't define it as smallest upon second smallest, but I define it as second smallest upon smallest. Yeah, I don't know to what extent this can work. So I'll do one thing. The concept remains the same. Maybe you can apply a similar formula. And just to save time, what I'll do is I'll close this file and I'll show that with the help of a macro. Okay, so second smallest upon smallest, how will you practically apply? You'll apply in the same way that I have done it. The only difference is the sort order. Initially, while sorting, okay, when we sorted, what did we do? Initially, when we sorted in descending order of amount. Now here you will sort it in ascending order of amount. Okay, and then your formula will be second smallest upon smallest. That's the only small change. You won't go with smallest upon second smallest. Okay, that's the only difference. Okay, so what I'll do is I will very quickly come back to this macro. There is a macro that I have provided for RSF also, because doing this largest upon second largest and second smallest upon smallest, that is a little difficult. You can find out for largest upon mean, that you can find out very easily, but this is a little difficult. So macro will help. And let me open the original data file, which is slightly less bulky. Again, you need to enable the macros. Unless you enable the macros, they won't work. Now you have two RSF. You can derive RSFs on maximum basis and on minimum basis. Both the options are there in front of us. Let's say this is the original raw data and we want to derive the RSF. So I'll say, let me come to the data sheet. Do I see anything in the data sheet? I'll put the entire data. Copy this entire data and I'll put it here. Okay. So just put your data here. The first step is put your data the way it is. You don't have to really break your head on this. I just switch off the video. Yeah. Put your data. Then come to this info worksheet. And now you can derive the RSF. The RSF can be maximum based or can be minimum based. So I'll click on derive RSF maximum based to begin with. Okay, this RSF max and RSF min, they actually contain something. Let me just clear it before I go ahead. Okay, so let's say I've got a blank slate here. I click on derive RSF maximum base. So this macro will ask me, select the entire column which contains code numbers. And a default value is in A column. But you may not agree with it. See, RSF is calculated typically vendor wise. So you need to give the vendor number. In my case, it is in B column because I don't know your data, right? Your data structure may be anyhow. So now I'm showing it in the B column. Okay. That is point number one. Then I'll press OK. When I press OK, you might feel that the same question is asked again, but no, this time we are asking amount column selection. Select the entire column which contains amount. So I'll show this amount also. That this is what contains this amount. Okay. And now I'll press OK. Okay, you need to indicate the columns which contain the vendor number, which contain the amount. And then you just have to wait. wait for a few seconds. I think it's going a little slower again because of the same reason. Let's just wait. Okay, finally it's through. I was just wondering whether this might hang. It did not. So actually, if there is no active Zoom session and if you have your processor fully available, then it will proceed much faster. It normally processes within a few seconds, 5-10 seconds. Here it took about half a minute or so. So here we get the RSF. So now this macro is going to produce these results. Okay. So you have code number 2001. The largest value is this. Second largest value is this. And the RSF is 1.16, which you get as a ratio. So this is the this thing, largest and second largest, what you do routinely. On that basis, you get this RSF. Second idea could be minimum base. Now, what's the relevance of minimum base? First, let's understand why at all we will look at the lower spectrum. You will look at the lower spectrum not necessarily from an amount perspective, but from the perspective of a rate. Okay, from the perspective of rate, you may find it relevant. Okay, say I'm selling goods to somebody. If I'm selling to the different customers at different points of time, and during the year, different rates may be applicable because the market rates may fluctuate. Based on the fluctuating market rate, I will sell. Also, I'll sell at different rate to different customers due to other reasons also. Even though the market rate could be uniform, but somebody buys in bulk, somebody is my old customer, somebody has some kind of a scheme being applicable. Whatever is the reason, the rates will change. So as auditors, we agree that rates will be different at different in different transactions. Even if the product is same, the rate will differ. But is there any particular vendor to whom you are selling at a very less price? So we can see that. Okay, so to everybody else you are selling at 100 and to one vendor you have sold it at 10 rupees. Then when you try to compute something like 100 is your second smallest and 10 is the smallest. So if you compute your second smallest divided by smallest, you'll get 10 times. So 10 times becomes my RSF minimum base. So I compute second smallest upon smallest. And this I would like to derive. So derive RSF minimum based, the same data. So for now, I will ignore rates. But typically, I feel if you find out product-wise rates, you might find something. To some particular person, goods were sold at a very less rate that you will be able to identify very easily. For now, I will continue with this data itself. So here's vendor number. Okay, entire column which contains code number is here. And entire column which contains amounts, that's this one. Now we just wait for a few seconds. Just taking a bit of time. Okay, anybody wants to ask anything by the time this gets generated? Any
Sir, I have a
question?
question.
Yeah, yeah.
Sir, is this RSF numerical based? Means suppose I have only one vendor who is providing
Hmm.
the multiple products. So,
Hmm.
can I apply RSF product based?
Yeah, you can do it product on product basis also if you want.
But my
Uh,
product name will be on in text, right?
yeah, that's
So,
fine. So this vendor can be vendor number, can be vendor code, an alphanumeric code or something. Your amount is numeric. That is most important. Okay. The idea that we are testing over here is that now if I extend the idea to products, okay, there will be product codes, whether it is one vendor or multiple vendors supplying it. But if it is multiple products, suppose, then is there any product on which suddenly I'm spending more money? Okay. Maybe you can look at it that way. That if there suddenly a much higher level activity in something. Example is vendor payment. I'm paying or I'm at least allowing my vendor to draw an invoice on me, which is much higher. Okay, that is just an example. Compared to the other invoices, it is higher. Similarly, compared to the other transactions of, it can be production of goods, sale of goods. Is there suddenly a boost in an activity at some level? So that we are trying to catch.
okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. So you can have it anyhow. In any case, that this code basically that we are looking at need not be numeric code. It has got nothing to do with. Okay, amount is what we are looking at. Okay, so here also we have got RSF, which is smallest value, second smallest value, and the RSF. That way we get a table. We get to see this, and you can apply your filters, and you can see that wherever there is a high RSF, if you are applying this on rates, then actually any rate is important. You can't say that one rate, higher rate is more important and lower rate is less important, because the rate may be a small value, something like 10 or 20 or something. But if it is applied to crores of units, then it's a crores of rupees of difference. So if you are going to take rates data and you are comparing the smallest and the second smallest, then every rate is important. You will just look at the RSF and you will see. And then you can't use RSF of 10 necessarily. Because see, I'm selling to somebody at 20 rupees. Okay, I'm selling to the whole world at 20, 21, 22, like that. And to one of them, I'm selling at 10, only to one vendor. So this is just two times actually. But two times means what? It's 50% reduction, isn't it? Instead of charging 20, I'm charging 10. Why? We need to ask that. Okay. So this is just two times. Maybe somewhere else it might be just five. That will still be four times. So here you can't use the threshold of 10. Even a threshold of, I would say, 5 becomes serious. 4 or 5. That also becomes quite serious. Okay, so these are two things that I would like to remark. Okay, use this macro to save your time so that you don't have to do these computations. The computations that we did with respect to laying down that if formula, copy pasting it. You already have the copy with you now. I will also arrange to send my files with you. But my point is, you don't have to spend even that much time. You can readily get that with the help of this macro. Okay. So how will I compare Benford's law and RSF? Benford's law is looking at the data at a bird's eye view. It is looking at the entire data. We are not really bifurcating it vendor wise or something. We are looking at all the numbers. Absolutely every number is considered. And it looks at discovering a fraud where there are a number of transactions leading to that fraud. So we had a number of transactions which started with 50, many transactions which started with 50, and there were too many of them. 4% of the data was just 5050, whereas what is expected is 0.86%. So that becomes my red flag. So obviously one or two transactions here and there, if I make a single transaction fraud which starts with 50, it will never get caught by Benford's law. It will get caught by some other rules, but it will not get caught by Benford's law. Benford's law is going to catch those transactions, those frauds which happen over multiple transactions and which distort the pattern of deals. Benford's law is very difficult to manage. Even if you are a fraudster and you are aware of Benford's law, you cannot manage it. I'll give you an example. Now, today we are in the month of February, okay, mid-February. In fact, today is 19th February. So, on 19th February, if I know the past data, right? So, I know what kind of numbers have come. Accordingly, if I try to uh, make some fraud, some fraudulent transactions, but I don't have control on what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen day after tomorrow. There are transactions, there are many genuine transactions also happening around me. I have absolutely no control over them. There is yet the month of March. So if you are somewhere in the middle of the year, you really can't plan your fraud in order to manage Benford's. Okay, if your fraud involves making multiple fraudulent transactions, then that will definitely disturb the pattern. You can't help it. So thinking from the auditor's perspective, from the investigator's perspective, this is good news. Benford's law is very difficult to manage. So if you apply Benford's law and you get red flags, there is a great likelihood that it will lead to a fraud. You just have to collect the evidence. You'll have to investigate, you'll have to collect the evidence in such a way so that it is admissible in the court of law. RSF has the potential of identifying single transaction frauds. Even if there is one transaction fraud, we have marked a couple of transactions here, right? So single transaction fraud can be caught by RSF. Benford's law can never catch that. RSF goes vendor wise. RSF may or may not use all the values. Okay. So in RSF, you are not taking a bird's eye view. Okay. You are somewhere on the road and you are looking at the left, looking at the right. So you are looking at every shop, restaurant, or cafe that's around you. When you are taking a bird's eye view, you are looking at the city as a whole. You're not necessarily looking at every nook and corner, right? So that's the difference between the two. Sometimes people ask me which is better. I say you need both. Okay. So if you travel by a flight, definitely, like if I come from Mumbai to Kolkata, I definitely need a flight. But how do I reach to my airport? I need a cab for that, right? So the entire journey cannot take place unless I have cabs at both the ends, right? From my place to airport, Mumbai airport, and from Kolkata airport to, suppose if I want to meet Vivek ji at his ACAE office, I will have to go there by cab again, right? So my point is you can't just rely on one tool. Okay, one tool may give you one direction, may give you some insights. Second tool will give you another insight. And there can be many more tools which you can use. Okay, these two tools are very important tools, hence I've covered them at length. Anybody has any questions you can ask, else we can move on to one more tool which is there on my mind. Before that, any questions? If there aren't any questions, then I will move to the next thing. I'll just open this data once more and I would like to then make a copy of it. We'll look at something called as same test. Okay, I'll attack this data from another angle. Okay, that is called as same test. What do we mean by same test? Do we have transactions? Do we have duplicate transactions? Now, how do you define a duplicate transaction? So duplicate transactions can be errors or can be frauds. See, the difference between error and fraud is error is unintentional and fraud is intentional. Intentionally, you go wrong. You do something wrong intentionally and that becomes a fraud. Otherwise, unintentionally, we keep making mistakes. Okay. And we don't have the intention of hiding it. So if somebody discovers it and lets us know, we can rectify it and things become better. Okay. That's the only difference between error and fraud. Okay. So uh, this can happen unintentionally also. This can happen intentionally also, that two payments might happen for the same vendor for the same bill. Okay, so let's test it from this angle. That is there any vendor who has raised an invoice? Okay, and we have paid twice to him. Let's assume now I am not very clear whether this data is a payments data. Okay, you have invoice number and you have an invoice amount. Whether this is paid or no, we don't know. Let's assume for our discussion that this is paid. And I would like to see whether for the same vendor, same invoice, and same amount, whether there are multiple payments and maybe same date also. Okay, to begin with, same vendor, same date, same invoice number, and same amount. Do we have such multiple transactions? Let us see. Okay, I'll just switch off the video. Now, one easy way of doing that is through concatenate. You can do something called as concatenate. So I'll what was it? Is it? It's a combination of vendor, date, invoice, and amount. These four things I'm combining, right? These four things I'm combining together. For that purpose, you can use a very simple idea in Excel. Just give reference to vendor number, then put an ampersand. Ampersand sits on top of 7. In simple words, we call that as and symbol. Then show the date, then another ampersand, then the invoice number, another ampersand, and then amount. So I get this. I can drag this till below. I'll get a set of values. Okay, this is the formula. I'm combining all of them. Okay, you get some funny looking value. We are not interested in the value per se. It's a combination. Okay, this is how I'll do if I've got till Office 2016. If you have got Office 2019 or my Office 2021 or Microsoft 365. Okay, if you have got either of these three versions, then you can use another function called concat. Okay, the conventional function was concatenate. The function that I just now, the value that I just now derived was equivalent to using concatenate function. Join several text strings into one text string. But just in case you have got minimum Office 2019 version, you can use concat function, which can let you select multiple values at ease. So if you insert a concat function, how is it an improvement? You can select multiple values like this as a range. Okay. You don't have to show them one by one. As a range, you can select very easily. And you still get the same thing. Okay, those who are having minimum 2019 version can try concat. Okay, same vendor, same date, same invoice number, same amount. Do we have multiple such occurrences? How would we know? So you can know this in a variety of ways. So you can build a pivot table also, but just for fun and for a better learning, I will show you another way of determining whether there are duplicate values. So you can use conditional formatting for this. Okay. So I request everyone to build a formula like this, either concat or a simple equal to B2 and C2 and D2 and E2. And then highlight this range, control shift down, highlight this entire range, come to the home tab, come to conditional formatting. Okay, in conditional formatting, we have highlight cell rules, and over here we have duplicate values. Okay, so conditional format, duplicate values. So light red fill with dark red text. Okay, anything will do. Just let us highlight it in some way or the other. Do we have any such transactions? Oh, we do have. Can you see? Something has got painted in red color. So let me apply filters and let me see, are there any such transactions? Which are those? So you can just apply filter by color here. Okay, should I repeat the last part? Last part was where I had applied, you know, I'm not able to escape. Okay. You just had to select this range, control shift down arrow key, and then come to home tab, and then click on conditional format, highlight cell rules, duplicate values. Okay, and choose your color. And my job is just to identify, so I'm not going to change much. Press OK. Okay, if you do that, then you will get it. If you go to home tab, conditional format, and you click on manage rules, you will be able to see your rule. You click on manage rule, here's the rule. It shows for which range it is applicable and how's the formatting and what's the rule. The rule is duplicate values. Okay, and now I would like to derive one with the help of filters. So I click on this. I go for filter by color. I go for this pink color, red color, whatever. Oh, so many of them. Some 17,000 records have been found. This is a big red flag. If I get 17,000 records, this is a very big red flag, isn't it? So you have, for so many of them, you have the same vendor number, same date, maybe not here, but somewhere else. Maybe this 288 and 289, if I see, 6384 is the vendor number. Then you have date, then you have the same invoice number and same amount. The ID is different. This is some kind of ID. I believe then this is the payment ID. Okay, and this is data of value paid. So this becomes a serious issue, isn't it? So you should check for this. Is everyone getting the point? Why these fields got repeated? You need to ask this. And this did not happen with one record. This happened with some 17,000 records. This is a scary thing. To be honest with you, with today's modern ERP systems, I think it is less likely that you will get some kind of red flag over here. But you should check. You should not relax your vigil. Okay, sometimes we feel that the system is perfect, and that's where, as auditors, we tend to relax our vigil. Okay, system could be a very good system. It could be a reputed one. It could be a reputed core banking solution, or it could be a uh, reputed vendor like SAP, or it could be Tally or any other system. So this system related things, you may sometimes think that it can never happen. For example, how can I get the same vendor number, same date, same invoice number, and amount paid is also same? How's that possible? It may not be possible because when the payment module is passed, when the transaction is passed in their accounting module, so it will require a cross reference of an invoice number. So once you choose that invoice number is ticked off. Next time, the same invoice number cannot be used for another payment, especially if that invoice is paid fully. Logically, this is correct idea. This is a very correct idea logically. But has it really happened that way? Let us check it once, how much time it takes. In 2 minutes, you can check this. Just do a concatenate and apply duplicates and see if you are getting any duplicates. I think it's worth a check, isn't it? Today, incidentally, it happens to be Shivaji Jayanti. In Maharashtra, it is celebrated more. I don't know to what extent it is celebrated in Kolkata, but I would like to take this occasion just to uh, remind all of us about an incident which I considered as a great learning lesson for all of us as auditors. So, as we all know, that Shivaji was captured and kept captive by Aurangzeb, not captured directly because he was invited to visit Aurangzeb's Darbar. He went there, but he was held back as captive and he was kept at Agra and he was under a siege. But then Shivaji wanted to escape, and the trick that he used was he pretended that he was falling ill and probably he has a very less lifetime left now. So he was distributing his wealth. He was just whatever money he had, he was spending, and he was distributing sweets and fruits and all. Every day, boxes used to go out from his tent. And initially, those who were guarding those tents, they used to check it very vigilantly that what is inside the box. Are there sweets? Are there fruits? Are there anything that is to be donated, or is there Shivaji inside? But later on, for several days, for several weeks, for several months, they did not find anything. They did not find Shivaji or his son. So their vigil became relaxed. And one fine day, we all know, we all have studied in history, Shivaji escaped. He came back to Maharashtra, and that was a great turning point to the history. Had Shivaji died over there itself for the rest of life, he would have been there. It would have been a different history. So my learning lesson from that is we should not relax our vigil as auditors, as security persons. It's a learning lessons for all of us. You might have seen that 500 times. Today is the 501st time with the same energy and enthusiasm. The way we had checked it the first time, we should check it 501st time. We should not assume that oh, it's nothing has come in the past 500 times, so today also we will not find anything. The moment we relax that, I think our audit quality will go down. And especially in an intensive audit like forensic audit, which is rather an investigation where we need to check it thoroughly. So we can't leave any stone unturned, right? So my simple point is that even something like this, you may think that oh, some sophisticated systems are being used. Is this even possible? Just test it. It just takes 2 minutes in Excel. Okay. Okay, Shantanu is asking one question: how to check twice payment to vendor for same invoice if invoice and payments are not configured accurately? Yes, that becomes a tricky. Then you can use pivot table and you can summarize the amount. Okay, so this entire data will be summarized using pivot table, where you will take the amount in totality. I think what you are asking is where partial payments are done. Like I might raise an invoice of 1 lakh and you may pay 20,000, 30,000, and 50,000 in 3 installments. But if there is a cross reference of invoice number in the payment also, you can still match that. You aggregate the payments and you aggregate the invoice number, both using invoice numbers. Okay, invoice data and payments data, both the values, the amounts to be aggregated using invoice number. And then you use VLOOKUP or something equivalent and you compare and see whether there are any two payments. Okay, so that you can see, that is one suggestion to you. Okay, another possibility that we must consider here is that while this is found and this itself is very alarming, there is another possibility that for the same vendor, for the same invoice, for the same amount, on different date, different payments have happened. Is that a possibility? Like vendor number is the same, invoice number is also same, and amount is also same, but payments are made on different dates. Fraudsters sometimes deliberately do that. The invoice is cleared, Later on, they will again show that invoice is payable and they will get it cleared. This time, they just goes to some bogus account. Okay, definitely the incidents have dropped now because of the sophisticated systems. But I think no harm in checking once, right? Let's quickly check once. So what I'll do is I'll do one more thing. This is called a same different test. Okay, we call it same different because here you let one field vary. Okay, so what we will do is we will concatenate vendor, invoice, and amount. We'll let the date vary. So it's actually a subset, or should I say superset rather, that whatever we have got just now in pink color, that will be a subset of what we are going to get now. So vendor number is this. I unfortunately cannot use concat now because I don't have continuous. But just three values very quickly, I'll do that. Vendor number, invoice number, and amount, three things. And this I'll drag till the bottom. I get the different values. A very simple formula. Let me paste this in the chat. And then I would like to highlight this and I would like to see whether I'm getting any duplicates. Definitely all the other duplicates will get highlighted. Whatever got highlighted in F column will get highlighted in G column also. Did I go to very fast? Okay, I'm not sure whether I went very fast. Basically, I have concatenated three fields excluding date. It's a repetition of the previous exercise. Only difference is you are not going to include date in your thing. Okay. And then you will concatenate and then you will mark that in red color. I think we are through. So I'll just quickly save it. Oh, surprisingly, I didn't get this one. We have marked conditional formatting. Mark this for duplicate. Why we did not get duplicate for return? Because even if your date is excluded, but then definitely these three are same. You can check once. Okay, interestingly, we don't have duplicates for this. Okay, let me check with the help of pivot tables. As I'm just getting a feeling that there's some issue with conditional formatting. How come I'm getting this once? So I'll just kill this formula using paste special and I'll quickly check. So what I'll do is, let me build a pivot table. I think that is a little more reliable. I think I'll get it at once also. So if I drop this vendor invoice amount and then beside that I can put a count. The same field drop in this and this. So same like what we did some time back. And I've got a count. Okay, just make sure you have got a count. And you can do a very simple thing. Just first thing is you highlight this and just see whether you are getting a count greater than 1. I'm definitely getting a count greater than 1 because I'm getting max as 13. So I've got as many as 13 occurrences, which is very interesting. So I can apply a filter here and I can go for value filters. Okay, I can use the existing filter, value filter, and I can say greater than 1. I'm interested in all those values which are greater than 1. How many such occurrences are there? So there are some of them are like 3 times. If I take example of this one if I copy, I come here and in this filter if I put it, then I'll be getting 3 occurrences. Okay, so this is one example where coincidentally the date is also same. Okay, it's exactly identical data. Only ID is differing. Vendor is the same, date is the same, amount is same, everything is same. Okay, so as I told you that it is going to be a subset. Maybe if I go for one last example, I'll take that is of large transactions. Largest one, I'll take 13. Somewhere I got 13, right? Let me check 13. Well, I had a few occurrences of 13 also. So if I go for one of them at random, and then if I apply a filter over here, see now this is a classic example because we relaxed one field, correct? So we do have one spare where your vendor is the same, date is the same, invoice number is same, and amount is same. So this is rent 2. So this is some sort of an issue. This vendor is giving you invoices with the same number. So now this is a problem in the problem in the process, flaw in the process actually I wanted to say. So you have a particular vendor who is giving you multiple invoices on different dates. He has kept the invoice number same. So this is a big lapse in your process. Why same invoice number is allowed one after the other? You are making payment maybe of some kind of repeated activity. Every month he renders some service and takes away 1750. Okay, but the invoice number is exactly the same. So you should, this will be a very good audit observation, I feel, even if it's not a case of forensic. But generally, if you check for something like this, you can point out that these invoice number is same. Small vendors, when they prepare invoice at their end, they might make mistakes like these. Often a Word file is used or Excel file is used for invoice purpose. Okay, and then thereafter, when when you do an audit like this, they may realize. In any case, there are two transactions with the same date. So this also needs to be checked. Two IDs have been created, but the invoice number is just the same and everything is just the same. Okay, so I think there are issues from this angle also. So even this needs to be checked, right? So three tools we have seen. We saw Benford's law, we saw RSF, and this is called as same test. And here it is same different test in a sense. Three fields were same, and one field we let vary. We let the date vary, and we relaxed that point, and then we got some more observations which are also noteworthy. So just think of different ideas that if something like this happens, then I would like to see it as an auditor. And then apply those ideas on your data. Attack your data from different angles. The same data we attacked from different angles, and every time we got different observations, okay, which were worth looking at. And if you do it that way, if you make use of different tools, then I think your forensic investigations will reach to a different height altogether. Okay. So any questions anybody would like to ask? Okay. Anybody wants to ask any questions? Do we have any questions in the chat box? I hope you understood these three tools. Okay, there are many more things to look at, but in the limited time frame that we have had, so I've tried my level best to cover these three. Hopefully, you'll start using them from Monday onwards, and that should help you. Are there any questions? I think there is one question in the chat. Needs this class as reason. Okay. So good news for you, Binoji, that the session is getting recorded, and you must definitely visit this recording and just follow up with the ACAE persons. They will be loading those recordings and making them available to you as soon as possible. So definitely you must revise it. Everyone should revise it in terms of how exactly things were done in Excel. Maybe some of you could keep pace with me, some of you couldn't. Okay, I'm not sure. So just definitely revise this in terms of concepts also, in terms of procedures also. And do let me know if you have any questions, queries in future as well. Okay, I'm taking this as an opportunity to get started with respect to interaction with you. This is not the end, although we are 5 minutes beyond the scheduled time. But even if the session ends, we will not end our journey here. Okay, through ACA we can stay connected, and definitely whatever I have discussed here can be used in normal audits also. So if you are a practicing auditor, all these concepts, Benford's law, RSF and all, you should apply in your regular audits also. Okay. Uh, the same test also you can apply in your regular audits. And I promise you that you will get a lot of new types of observations, worthwhile observations, and maybe, who knows, some frauds also. Right? So on this note, I would like to end my discussion subject to any questions. Otherwise, we will hand it over to Vivek's, two Vivek's that we have here.
I think so. This is Hemant here, co-chairman of the committee. I think Vivek is not here right
Okay.
now.
Okay,
So
Hemanji, you can take it.
yeah, thank you, sir, for taking time out and be part of this forensic workshop. I think it was a wonderful 3 hour session where we have learned three good tools to apply in regular audit apart from forensic audit. Friends, I am sure that we have been using Excel in our daily professional work, but as we dig more, we understand that there is much more to learn in Excel. And Excel as a tool has more significance when we are into forensic accounting, where we are looking for the so-called red flags or pointers, which will decide the path of audit or investigation. Nachiket, with your vast experience and knowledge of the subject, I think you have given us a knowledgeable session on the use of Excel in forensic accounting. Thank you, sir. And on behalf of ACAE, I would, as a token of appreciation for the session, I would like to share e-memento to you.
Oh, sure. Great.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
So this one will be mailed to you.
Okay, thank you very much. So sweet of you.
Thank you,
And
sir.
it's
Thank
my
you.
pleasure and honor to come on this dais and share whatever little I know with the esteemed members of this ACA Institute. Thank you very much. And I promise I'll come again next time whenever you
Sure, sir,
invite
sir.
me.
Sure, sure.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with this end, we are ending the session.
Thank you.